Okay, next, web security gateways. All right, a web security gateway, a proxy server with advanced features, such things as virus scanning. It can prevent connections to inappropriate sites like peer-to-peer networks or file sharing sites. Data loss prevention, which is a big thing nowadays. So if it determines or it can sense, hey, does this interaction, does this communication contain 9 digits, maybe with 2 dashes? Okay, so it may be a social security number, or does it contain 16 digits for a credit card number, or things along those lines. So it can identify different types of traffic and block that from escaping, quote unquote, the network. All right, or you can block connections to inappropriate sites, like I said, peer-to-peer, file sharing, Dropbox, Box.net, so on and so forth. All right, a lot of sites, or a lot of users rather, even in a corporate environment, will use these types of services like Dropbox and so forth to share files back and forth, primarily because it's easy. But the downside to that is there's no governance around that. Right, so a lot of companies want to restrict access to those types of sites so they can much more tightly control what types of data or data is actually leaving their network. It can also block things like ActiveX controls, Java applets, third-party cookies, things along those lines. So again, malicious websites have a lot less chance of infecting or doing damage in a corporate environment if those attack vectors are mitigated, right? ActiveX control, Java applets, a lot of times malware or misbehaving sites utilize or leverage those specific technologies to inflict harm on users. So it can also enable granular access to websites so that you can access the website, but maybe not all of the website. All right. So in other words, you could access LinkedIn, for instance, but not allow someone to do a job search. Or you could allow people to access Facebook, but prohibit them from posting content or playing games. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about are VPNs. Okay, VPN and VPN concentrators. So a VPN is going to be a virtual private network, something you should probably be familiar with. If not, again, there's some other courses that you can dig much deeper into, but we'll give you a good understanding of what the general concepts of VPNs are here. A VPN creates a private network across a public network. All right, so you could be sitting in a coffee shop, for instance, and very securely tunnel from that coffee shop to your corporate environment and access corporate resources without worrying that someone is potentially sniffing the traffic, accessing or picking up user sensitive information, usernames, passwords, so on and so forth. All right, so there are a couple components of a VPN that we need to be aware of. Tunneling protocols such as L2TP, which is layer 2 tunneling protocol, point-to-point tunneling protocol, or PPTP, and then IPsec, or IP security. All right, so what do these things mean? Well, they are the components that make up the VPN, because there's actually two components. There's the tunnel, and then there's the encrypted data that passes through that tunnel. All right, so when we're actually establishing a VPN connection, the first thing you do is you establish the tunnel, and then you establish the secure connection, or the encrypted connection between the two endpoints. Okay, so security comes from the tunneling protocol and the encryption combined. All right, so it's very important to understand you can't really have a security unless you have both of those in play. All right, just because you have a tunnel established, if you don't have that encrypted communication taking place over the tunnel, then it's not going to do you much good as far as security is concerned. All right, now many VPNs use something called two-factor authentication. RSA is a good example of that. They're one of the bigger vendors, recently acquired by EMC, and RSA can provide hardware or software tokens. And you see a picture here of an RSA hardware token, and what happens every 30 seconds, that number on that token or that dongle will change, and it's in sync with the VPN concentrator, the VPN server rather, back at the corporate headquarters. Okay, there's an authentication mechanism that keeps both of these in sync. So every 30 seconds that number changes. So when you go to establish your connection, it's going to ask you for your username and perhaps your PIN number or a password, or if you're going to use something like an RSA token, it'll ask you for basically two things: what you have and what you know. All right, obviously your username. The token is what you have, and that's going to change every 30 seconds. So it makes it much more secure. So even if someone steals your laptops and they know your username, they're still not going to be able to get into a VPN connection and get back to the corporate headquarters. They're going to have that RSA token as well. And even if they have the RSA token, they're still going to need to know your PIN, because once you put your PIN in, then of course the token will pop up. So It's just it's an extra layer or an added layer of security. All right, so VPNs, as I said, many companies provide VPN access to remote employees, whether they're teleworkers or mobile sales force, maybe that travels around and needs to access corporate resources. It can be given pretty much as a full access connection. So once you access the corporate network or once you access the VPN, you have access to everything. Or it can be set up so that access can be restricted to only certain parts of the network. So that allows people that VPN in maybe only to access a specific server or a specific set of files, so on and so forth. All right, so here's an example of two different types of VPN connections. We have a VPN between two corporate networks in the lower left, and you'll see it's a VPN connection in the tunnel, and you have a VPN router on both networks. All right, so it pretty much, in these instances, a lot of times these are set up as constant connections. And in the upper right-hand corner, we have a VPN connection from a remote user. In this instance, that user is sitting out on the internet, whether it be, like I say, home, office, remote, somewhere that's outside of the corporate environment proper. That person connects to their ISP. Now they have internet connectivity. They then initiate their VPN connection. It connects them to the corporate environment. Okay, they establish the tunnel, the VPN connection rather than the tunnel, and then that communication is secured over the public internet. They don't have to worry about someone being able to snoop their traffic.